Hello, Monica. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How about yourself?
Doing well, thanks. Thanks so
Excellent.
much for joining me today. So I'm really anxious to hear about your topic today. But before we get started, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and how you got into doing what you're doing?
Oh, absolutely. Well, my name is Monica Cahill, and I am, I own indoor health essentials and nutrition. So basically, I do environmental health. It's one of those things that most people don't think about, when they think about health. And so the way I got into it actually through my own pain. When I moved to Georgia, I developed a very, very severe allergies that turned into as allergic asthma, nasal polyps, or the whole 9 yards. But most people are actually affected by the outside. I was affected on the inside, outside of the environment, but I was actually affected on the where I was living. I had got into a home that was absolutely beautiful, but it was very, very toxic. It had mold. It had, the people that had lived there, they owned pets, and they actually had put in a brand new carpet. But getting into, even moving forward, they did not clean anything under the carpet. And so we know everything rises. And I remember when I started ripping out the carpets, I mean, like literally there was a layer of whatever they must have had. I don't even know how many pets they had because there was a layer of just yeah, and the dander and everything else. And that's actually what I was breathing. And I got very sick and I couldn't figure out, what was going on. I've always been in nutrition. I've always done that all my life. I come from a naturopathic, family, and so I knew about health, but I didn't know a lot about environment. And so when,
Mm.
when I got sick, is when I started, looking into it and finding out, about building materials and how they affect us. And basically, that's where we've spent the most time. So if that your home is not healthy, it affects
Hmm.
everything that you do. So,
Absolutely.
I actually ended up, being certified in environmental health. And I'm also certified in integrative nutrition. And so
Mhm.
I combine them both because you can do one thing and be healthy. So it has to be a combination of all different kinds of things. So that's
That's
a little bit
great.
about me.
That's
Yeah.
that's quite a story. So, as you're talking about that, so what precipitated you to start looking at the environment within your home? Was there anything
Yeah,
that
actually, what happened
caused you to
was,
do that?
yeah, because I obviously by then I was in corporate, and it
Mhm.
what happened, and I kind of have learned through my naturopathic health how to listen to my body very well.
Okay.
And so when I was out, when I went to work, I was fine. When I came home,
Okay.
I started the sniffling, the coughing, it affected my sleep. It affected, when I woke up in the morning, my eyes were swollen.
Mhm.
And I kind of knew how to take it a little bit, just to use different herbs, different size, different modalities. But
Mhm.
it actually was getting worse instead of getting better.
Oh,
And
wow.
so I went to naturopathic doctors, went to chiropractors, I went to holistic health, all different kinds of things. But they would only
Mhm.
be, they would only help me for a while, but it didn't help until one time I remember I was in this meeting and my whole face was swollen. And and this gentleman came, he didn't even say hi to me. He was like, I know what is wrong with you. I
Oh,
was like,
wow.
hello, who are you? And and so he started to tell me, and I was like, so one of the questions I remember clearly him asking me is, the reason I know is because I used to be there and I know how you feel.
Okay.
And have you ever thought about environmental health? I was like, what? And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
he's the one who said, get your home tested.
Hmm.
And so when it was tested, that's how I found out that I had mold inside the walls. And unfortunately, I don't
Ooh.
know why, because I'm very sensitive with myself. I could not smell
Mhm.
it. And so there was actually black mold in the home,
Oh, wow.
which is the worst thing that
The
you
I
could
was gonna say
ever
that's the really
breathe.
toxic one. Yeah.
Exactly. And then, so I started just basically clearing out, my home with all different kinds of things. He did work with a company, which I ended up working with who has
Mhm.
technologies to remediate the home.
Mhm.
And then obviously I did, the carpet, removing the carpet, and that's how I discovered, all that, pet things
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
got rid of them. And eventually, and literally, when I started using this technology, I had literally suffered for more than 3 years.
Oh, wow.
And obviously, I ended up, I've not been to a doctor since I was 6 years old. I had to go to the doctor to find out what was wrong. But then
Mhm.
obviously, they said allergic to something, you have to go on medication for the rest of your life. Because by this time I had actually asthma.
Mm.
And when I looked at the medication, and the side effects were worse than what I was suffering. So I was like, thank you very much. I'll find another way, And
Mhm.
so I purified my home. And obviously, I was always eating well, but I upped my, the eating, and just doing
Mhm.
everything right. The water, anything that I used that I saw that there was a chemical in it that I could not pronounce, I changed absolutely everything in my surrounding. And I can tell you, like, within a week, I was completely healed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, when you're not exposed to what's making you sick, that
exactly.
definitely changes the
It
situation.
changes. So I just felt, like, when I started reading, about environmental health, I found out, the EPA has put out a lot of good information, about, that 70% of the homes in the United States actually have mold in them. And
Oh,
just because you
wow.
don't see it doesn't mean it's not there.
Oh,
And
wow, that's pretty
then
high.
Exactly. And then we think about, all the building materials.
Mhm.
An average home has 10 pounds of toxic materials that we breathe in every day.
Ooh,
Yes. And it's,
terrible.
I know, and people are getting sick and they don't know why,
Yeah.
but when you breathe something in, when you take it in and it's not coming out, that's where diseases start.
Yeah.
And, when we think about people who are not sleeping well, a lot of people are on sleeping medication.
Mhm.
A lot of people just do all different kinds of things, but until you remove what is the cause, you're just covering it up, and the
Yeah.
body gets exhausted, and then you start
Mhm.
developing diseases that
Mhm.
you shouldn't have, because I call them lifestyle diseases, because you can do something about them.
Yeah.
We
No.
cannot do anything about outside, you know, but you take care of your home. What you bring in,
Yep.
what you eat, what you drink, what you bathe with, how you sleep. That is on us to do.
Mhm.
And so
Absolutely.
when we do those things right, then I believe the rest of it works itself out.
I totally agree. I'm on board with that.
Yeah.
It's funny that, people think that disease is just a natural part of life. And a lot of, what people are doing to treat those symptoms
Mm-hmm,
is
mm-hmm,
to they're just treating the symptoms rather than getting to the root cause. And
exactly.
really the disease is your body telling you something.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Something's not right, something needs to change.
mm-hmm,
It didn't just get there overnight, so it's been something that's been accumulating over time.
mm-hmm,
And if you just get to what caused that change out of the way,
mm-hmm.
the body definitely responds
It,
appropriately.
it does. And like I said, since we spend most of the time at home, even just
Mhm.
sleeping, that's for those of
Yeah.
us that sleep 8 hours, 10 hours, or whatever, you know,
Mhm.
we breathe, how many breaths do we take a day?
A
And so
lot.
when you imagine, when you imagine, every time you're taking a breath, you're breathing
Mhm.
something, it's going into your lungs. And one of the things I found out that was very interesting is that if you stretched our lungs out, they're
Yeah.
actually the size of a tennis court.
I yeah, I think I've heard that before. That's
Yes,
pretty big too.
I know. So
That
imagine
goes into your body.
how compressed it is. So, and what
Mhm.
happens is all these things that we are breathing in, they actually are, get into all those folds.
Yeah.
And then
Wow.
when you think, when you get something like the people who, have gotten pneumonia, they have no way, it's so packed up, it has
Yeah.
no way of moving out of the
Oh,
body.
wow.
Yeah.
So with all that, what are your tips for spring? Because, we think of spring cleaning.
Yeah. And
and all that kind of stuff. So,
exactly. I mean, and think about, for whether, no matter where you are, we do have our own form of, winter and all
mhm,
that. But and so we are overburdened. I feel like we are overburdened. We are heavy clothes, we eat heavy food, we do everything is heavy. And so when
mhm,
you start lightening up the home, like when I work with my clients, I tell them start getting rid of stuff, because everything you're bringing in, the dust that is in the home, it gets onto them. And so, and then anytime you
sense.
touch them, they're spreading it out. So if you can, get rid of all the stuff in the house that you're not using, it's something memorabilia, just box them up and put them somewhere. But anything that you're not using currently, just take it out. And then, your body number, the home number one gets good circulation of the air. I always recommend, I don't care where you live, you need a purifier, because like
Ask
as
you
I
that.
mentioned, just because, you're you painted your home, it's still
Mm,
oozing chemicals.
hmm.
Anytime we turn on heat or we turn on air conditioning, it actually starts oozing out on all this. You don't see them, so you don't think about them.
Right, right.
You think about, we shed over 600,000 our skin, and that's where dust mites come from. They come to
Yeah.
eat what we're shedding,
Hmm.
and then they their waste is what we're actually breathing in.
Yeah.
And for most people who have asthma and allergies, that's what they're allergic to. This because you're breathing that in every day. You're breathing it, when you sleep, that's when you shed the most, and it's compacted in your bed.
Hmm.
And so, so absolutely recommend a purifier. And I think about right now I'm actually talking to a lot of parents, who are, either they're expecting or they have little children.
Hmm.
And think about, the baby in the womb has been protected for nine
Mm,
months. And then when you discover you're going to have a child, what do? Paint the room, change the carpet, buy absolutely everything new.
thing
And
new.
all those things have chemicals in them, from the blankets, because they spray things on them, for fire. What do you call them? The fire,
Yeah, the fire retardant. So they're still
fire
doing that,
retardants.
huh?
They are
Yeah,
chemicals, yeah.
yeah,
And you don't think to ask those questions, the
yeah.
clothes, so that they don't, get stains, the this and that. So a
Hmm.
baby is coming in, and that's why we are seeing a lot of kids, they come home and they start getting sick. Children are starting to get asthma and allergies at a very, very young age.
Yeah.
Or those things, you're either getting that. And I always say, when you get asthma and allergies, it's actually a blessing, because at least there's something wrong, because otherwise
Yeah.
it's actually silent in the
Yeah.
body, and then people are
Yeah.
getting cancer and they're like, where did it come from?
Yeah.
But it's all these
So,
things.
so going back to the blankets and all that. So even when you wash them in the laundry, it's not taking those chemicals out, is it?
It's not, because it's put in, it's not supposed to come off. It's just like when you
Okay.
buy
Gotcha.
furniture,
Hmm.
and it's sprayed with whatever they spray, so that you can't
Yeah.
wash it. You can wipe it off, but you can't wash it off, because it's a
Yeah.
chemical. it's
Yeah.
it's ingrained in the fabric.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So and so I say, if you're gonna do that, just put a purifier there, so that the baby is spending 20 hours in that room with the door
Hmm.
closed, you know, and taking all
Hmm.
those in. And, there are a lot of people that believe that's where SIDS come from, the disease. Okay, when kids die in their sleep,
Hmm.
they haven't proved it yet, but a lot of people think that's what it is, because there's no way you can have a healthy child and you put the baby to sleep
Right.
and
Yeah,
they
there's
just
something.
die. There's
Yeah.
something, yeah. So,
Yeah, there's
they,
something that's
like I
doing
said,
that.
they haven't proved that yet, but
Hmm.
but most people think that's what it is,
Yeah.
because that body, they breathe faster than we do,
Hmm.
and so they're taking a lot in those little bodies, and they it's very toxic.
Yeah.
So that's why I began doing this. There are over 100 million people who suffer with asthma and allergies alone.
Hmm.
And many of them, it is the number one reason children miss school.
Oh, wow.
The number one
Asthma.
reason, yeah, asthma and allergies. Yeah, the number one reason children miss school. And then
Okay.
it actually affects, the parents because now they have to
Yeah.
leave work and come stay with children because they
Yeah.
can't stay. So, and then obviously, COVID didn't help,
Mm.
so it made things worse. And we can see even up to today, yeah, it's very tough. We've been able to help a lot of schools, put those purifiers in the schools so that the kids have a chance to,
Do you have a brand that you like to
Yeah,
recommend to
yeah, we
people?
actually, oh yeah, absolutely. We use a technology that was actually made for the NASA space station.
Oh, okay.
It was, it was used. The NASA wanted to see if they can grow food in space, and
Hmm.
so they had to clean the air, and so that's the technology. It works so well in space that the company brought it to Earth. I call it out of this world technology because it is, and
That's
yeah.
great.
And the nice thing about it is not, it's very, very environmentally safe because it's actually made to work the way air is purified outside by nature.
Really?
Yes. So
Okay.
it uses, if you've ever been to outside, after a thunderstorm and that's
Hmm.
clear is very, so that's what it does in the home.
Okay.
Yeah. And then
All
it
right.
work it works on air, and also, on anything that it touches, is actually cleans it. So that if you have a
Oh,
cold,
nice.
yeah, if you have a cold and somebody else comes and touches the same, doorknob that you
Mhm.
touch, they're not gonna get it. So
Oh, so it sanitizes
it
too.
sanitizes, it sanitizes the air and surfaces, so
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
So we found out even during COVID, you could be in the same room with somebody who has COVID, but
Hmm.
it actually kills it in less than a minute.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty spectacular.
It's a very spectacular thing. So yeah.
So, okay, so for spring, you're recommending the air purifier.
Uh-huh.
Is there anything else? Do you have
Yeah.
any?
Basically
Because a lot of times
decluttering.
people like cleaning during that
Mhm.
time. So, what
Yeah.
kind of cleaning products do
Yeah,
you like to
absolutely.
use?
That is the other thing because, when I started, I talked about the things that we bring into the home.
Hmm.
And most people don't think about, the other chemicals that are in what they're using for the home.
Right.
And when I work with my clients, I tell them just take the first three ingredients and Google them. So that's not coming from my mouth. It's coming from,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, you
Hmm.
know what I'm saying? And they're
Yep.
like, wow, so, and
Yep.
those are the only things that they are, there's no regulation. And so those are some of the things they can tell you. So you don't know what everything else is. And you're breathing those things in every minute every
Hmm.
day that you're spraying something, cleaning. Look at the things that we do laundry with,
Yeah.
all the detergents, so all those things, what we put on our bodies, what we
Hmm.
wash our hair with, especially for the ladies, the makeup that you
Yep.
wear, just
Yep.
just just Google it, and you will see we are literally poisoning ourselves every single day.
It's
And
amazing.
yeah, so
Not in a good way.
this, yeah, not a good way. So this spring season is to rethink of what you're using,
Okay. I
rethink
like that.
what
Yeah.
you're using in your home, and you literally begin to feel better, because those things, if they don't do anything, they do, you're breathing them in, they're going into your body. And we have gotten very good at exercising and eating right, but we are
Hmm.
doing all this other stuff wrong. So we need to cycle that around and start
Yep.
from the outside in, inside out.
I agree.
Yeah.
That's a very good point because, like you said, most people don't think about the environment that they're living in
Mhm.
and all that kind of stuff. So that's great information. Is there anything else that you would like to share before we close out?
I'd like to share. I'd like to share. Whenever I do any podcast, I tell people, our health is in our hands.
Hmm.
Don't depend on Medicare, Medi, whatever, insurance. Because it's not going to help you having insurance. It helps you when you take care of your body, and you don't need that insurance.
That's great advice right there.
Exactly. And
That's a great way to
because
sum it up.
I always quote, what's his name? Because he said he could have been able to pay anybody any amount of money to do absolutely anything for him
Mhm.
except be sick for him.
Mm.
So, you can have millions and trillions of dollars in the home. You can buy your health.
Yep.
You have to take care of it.
You have to take care of it.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's great advice. I love that.
Yes.
All right. I appreciate your time with us today.
Well,
That was some
thank you.
great information. And yeah, I look forward to learning more in the future.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.